for scattered clouds at 1,000 feet. A deck of broken clouds at about 25,000 feet. Light winds out of the southeast at about 7 miles an hour. Chilly temperatures, though, 15 degrees Fahrenheit at landing with a wind chill factor of about 4 degrees. To calibrate the landing time, it occurs about 1 hour, 23 minutes after local sunrise. As we enjoy the view of the Soyuz TMA-06M spacecraft flying over the South Pacific, with its undocking having been accomplished from the International Space Station on time at 6:43 p.m. Central Time. It is slowly moving away from the station, ultimately to a point about 12 kilometers away from the complex for the 4-minute, 44-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines and a deceleration maneuver to slow the Soyuz down and enable it to drop out of orbit for its descent back to Earth. The deorbit burn scheduled an hour and 54 minutes from now at 9:13 p.m. Central Time, setting up the Soyuz for its entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. This animation shows the events yet to unfold. Again, that deorbit burn scheduled at 9:13 p.m. Central Time, 4-minute, 44-second firing of the Soyuz's engines to enable it to separate, to move into the Earth's atmosphere. First, the module separation that will occur at 9:40 p.m. Central Time. The descent module, the only section of the Soyuz to remain in a position to return to Earth with the crew on board. It will hit the first traces of the Earth's atmosphere at 9:42 p.m. Central Time, and then the command to open chutes at 9:51 p.m. Central Time. First, a massive drogue chute that will be deployed, followed by the deployment of the main chute. The Soyuz canted to burn off the excess energy on its way for entry guidance toward the landing site, the soft landing engines to fire just a few seconds off the ground at on the steppe of Kazakhstan at the landing site, with landing scheduled at 10:05 p.m. Central Time to bring to an end Expedition 34 after 144 days in space, 142 days for the crew aboard the International Space Station. Once it has touched down on the steppe of Kazakhstan, the search and recovery forces will begin to make their way for the landing of Russian Mi-8 helicopters from the search and recovery forces that will gather a couple of hundred yards away from the spacecraft itself. One of those helicopters containing RSC Energia personnel that will erect a inflatable medical tent nearby, in which the crew will be carried in their reclining chairs that will be placed outside of the capsule, and they'll be placed in to enable them an opportunity to acclimate themselves to Earth's gravity for the first time in almost 5 months. Because of the very frigid temperatures outside in Kazakhstan in the Saturday morning hours local time, the crew probably will not spend a great deal of time in those reclining chairs. They'll be bundled up and hoisted in their chairs and carried toward the medical tent, within which they will remove their SOCA launch and entry suits, climb into more comfortable flight clothing, and get inside all-terrain vehicles to be driven back to respective helicopters, 3 helicopters waiting nearby for the 2-hour flight back to the airport in Kustanai, where they'll split up, say goodbye to one another for the time being. Kevin Ford to board a NASA plane that is waiting at the Kustanai airport. Novitsky and Torelkin to board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for the flight back to Chkalovsky Airfield outside of their training base and home in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. And tomorrow, wasting no time, the next trio of crew members to be launched to the International Space Station, Pavel Vinogradov, Alexander Mazurkin, and Chris Cassidy, will be flown from Star City down to the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan for their final 2 weeks of training that will begin with a fit check, essentially a dress rehearsal as they're suited up in their SOCA launch and entry suits in the integration facility at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where their Soyuz vehicle is undergoing final processing. This is Mission Control Houston. We will wrap up this portion of our coverage of the return tonight of the Expedition 34 crew. Just to recap, the crew said farewell to one another. The 3 departing crew members had an opportunity to say their final farewells to the remaining crew on board the station. Ford, Novitsky, and Torelkin made their way inside their Soyuz spacecraft, closed the hatch, conducted leak checks, donned their SOCA launch and entry suits, and at 6:43 p.m. Central Time, a little less than an hour ago, they undocked from the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Zvezda service module of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, undocking occurring on time at 6:43 p.m. Central Time over northeastern Mongolia. 3 minutes after undocking, the Soyuz was commanded to a 15-second separation burn to initiate an opening rate for the Soyuz from the International Space Station that will result in the Soyuz winding up at a point 12 kilometers away from the station for the deorbit burn yet to come, an hour and 48 minutes from now, that will begin the trek home for Ford, Nowitzki, and Turelkin. The deorbit burn will begin at 9:13 p.m. Central Time, a 4-minute, 44-second deceleration of the Soyuz, basically a braking maneuver to enable it to drop out of orbit for its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. Some 23 minutes or so after the deorbit burn is complete, the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle will separate pyrotechnically. The descent module, the center section of the 3-section Soyuz spacecraft, in which the crew is housed, strapped into their seats, with Evgeny Turelkin in the left seat, Soyuz Commander Oleg Nowitzki in the center seat, and NASA's Kevin Ford in the right seat. That descent module will begin to make its way towards atmospheric entry at 9:42 p.m. Central Time. G loads will reach their maximum peak of about 3 to 4 Gs on the crew members at 9:49 p.m. Central Time. As the Soyuz descends then with a command to open its parachutes at 9:51 p.m. Central Time. First, a drogue chute will deploy, followed later by the severing of that drogue chute as a main chute is deployed, and the Soyuz then will hone in on its landing site 36 miles to the northeast of Arkelik, and a touchdown at 10:05 p.m. Central Time to wrap up Expedition 34. A phalanx of helicopters in the process of preparing to deploy from both Kustanai and Arkelik. Other helicopters downrange at the ballistic landing site to the southwest of the primary landing site in the unlikely event the Soyuz encounters a problem that would result in its falling short of its intended target. But the prime helicopters associated with the search and recovery forces for the Russian Rosaviatsia search and recovery team will be flying in the neighborhood of the prime landing site, ready to support recovery operations once the Soyuz touches down. For all of that, we'll be back on the air in an hour and 20 minutes from now at 8:45 p.m. Central Time, ready to bring you our deorbit and landing coverage on NASA television. Again, 8:45 p.m., 9:45 Eastern Time for deorbit and landing coverage as the Expedition 34 crew prepares to end its mission and return to Earth on the steppe of Kazakhstan. For now, we'll wrap it up. We'll see you shortly. This is Mission Control Houston.